Taehyung attends his ex-girlfriend's wedding. What he says to the groom shocks everyone. No one noticed him at first. Not when the string quartet softened their final notes. Not when the guests shifted in their seats, preparing for the vows. Not even when the bride lifted her chin and smiled at the man waiting for her at the altar. Taehyung stood near the back of the cathedral, half hidden by marble columns and filtered sunlight, his presence as misplaced as a shadow where light should be. His name was not on the guest list. His invitation had never existed. And yet, there he was, fingers curled tightly around the stem of a champagne glass he had no intention of drinking. The glass trembled slightly in his hand. His voice did not. "Before you say I do," Taehyung said, stepping forward into the aisle, "there's something your fiancé needs to hear. From me." The words cut through the cathedral like a blade. The music stopped. Conversations died mid-breath. The priest froze, hands still open over the Bible. Every head turned at once. The bride went completely still. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her fingers tightened around the groom's hand, knuckles whitening, as if instinct alone was holding her upright. The groom turned, confusion flashing across his face. "Excuse me," he said sharply. Taehyung took another step forward. The sound of his shoes against the stone floor echoed far louder than it should have. Whispers rippled through the pews. A few cameras, previously raised for the ceremony, lowered slowly. People sensed it immediately. This wasn't part of the program. This was the man everyone had assumed would never show up. He shouldn't have come. Taehyung knew that. He had replayed this moment in his head 1,000 times and dismissed it every single time. His therapist had warned him. Closure doesn't come from confrontation, Taehyung, but he wasn't there for closure. He was there because something was wrong. He hadn't seen her in almost a year. Not since the night she walked out of their apartment with swollen eyes and a suitcase that scraped against the floor like an accusation. He had stood frozen in the doorway back then, unable to follow, unable to explain, convinced that silence was protection. And now she stood before him in white lace, veil tucked delicately into her dark hair, her expression caught somewhere between heartbreak and disbelief. Taehyung realized in that moment that the truth had never been spoken, and he was about to tear it out into the open. "I know this isn't the time," he said, his voice steady even as his heartbeat slammed against his ribs, "but it's the only moment left." Security hadn't moved, not because they hadn't been alerted, but because no one fully understood what was happening, not even the bride, not even Taehyung himself. He looked at the groom again. "Do you love her?" Taehyung asked. The groom blinked. "What kind of question is that?" "Do you love her?" Taehyung repeated louder now. Silence swallowed the room. The bride's mother rose halfway out of her seat. The best man leaned in, whispering urgently to someone. The priest hesitated, eyes darting between the couple and the stranger in the aisle. But the bride didn't speak. She hadn't said a word since Taehyung stepped forward. "I'm asking," Taehyung continued, "because when she was with me she used to say love meant protecting someone, even from yourself, even when it hurts, even when it means disappearing." He inhaled slowly, every nerve in his body buzzing. "She said love wasn't just romance, it was responsibility, memory, sacrifice." A ripple passed through the room when he spoke again. "She left me so you wouldn't find out what I did." The shift was instant, the kind that happens when a single sentence changes the shape of reality. No one spoke. Not the bride, not the groom, not even the faint wind brushing against the stained glass windows. Taehyung turned slightly away from the altar, his knees threatening to give out. He caught himself just in time. He hadn't come to destroy anything. He had come to return something. 7 months earlier, it had been raining the night she left. Taehyung remembered because he had chased after her barefoot, the pavement biting into his skin, as the taxi's headlights blurred through his tears. He hadn't understood why she was crying if she was the one leaving. He hadn't understood anything at all. It was only later that he found the letter, folded twice, slipped behind their favorite vinyl record on the shelf. It wasn't an apology. It was a warning, a confession, a plea. And now, 7 months later, that letter rested in the inside pocket of his coat. He pulled it out and, without asking permission, placed it gently into the groom's hand. "She wanted to protect you," Taehyung said quietly, "but protecting you meant hurting herself." He turned back to the bride, his voice finally cracking. "I'm sorry I didn't protect her first." For the first time since he arrived, she looked directly at him. Her eyes didn't burn with anger. They didn't even fill with sadness. They filled with something heavier. Gratitude. The groom unfolded the letter. His eyes moved quickly across the page, then slower. His lips parted as he read silently, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to something close to horror. The air felt sacred, untouchable. When the groom looked up, he didn't ask a single question. He simply turned and walked away from the altar. No one followed him. Everyone stood, but no one spoke, especially not the bride. Because some truths don't need microphones. They just need a moment. And in that moment, Taehyung stood frozen, emotion clawing at his throat, wondering whether he had finally done the right thing, or whether he had just destroyed her only chance at happiness. He didn't know. All he knew was that she wasn't wearing that same brave face anymore. She was crying. And it wasn't because he came. It was because he finally told the truth. The heavy church doors slammed shut behind Taehyung as he stepped into the bitter afternoon air. The sound echoed through the marble hallway like the final note of a funeral hymn. Inside, the ceremony hadn't ended. It had unraveled. The groom was gone. The guests remained frozen in confusion. The bride stood at the altar, shoulders trembling, veil slipping slightly from her hair, as if gravity itself had finally remembered her. Outside, Taehyung didn't stop walking until the cold hit his lungs hard enough to remind him he was still alive. He exhaled slowly, jaw tight, fists buried deep in the pockets of his coat. Camera flashes were already beginning to spark at the edge of the courtyard. Someone had tipped off the paparazzi. Someone always did. He didn't flinch. He deserved whatever came next. Footsteps hurried behind him. "You should have never come." Her voice broke before she reached him. Taehyung stopped. He didn't turn around immediately. He already knew what she looked like. He had memorized her in dreams and nightmares for nearly a year. When he finally faced her, she was no longer wearing the veil. Her makeup was smudged, eyeliner streaked by tears she hadn't bothered to hide. But she was still her. "Why now, Taehyung?" she demanded, breath uneven. "Why today?" He met her eyes, his own burning. "Because today was the only day I knew you'd be forced to listen." She let out a sharp laugh that cracked in the middle. "I ignored your messages for a reason." "You ignored me for 7 months," he shot back. "What was I supposed to do? Pretend you didn't disappear? Pretend you weren't walking into something dangerous?" Her expression hardened. "You don't get to act like the victim. You lied to me. You betrayed me. You looked me in the eyes and promised I was safe with you." "And I meant it," Taehyung growled. "I meant every word until that phone call came, until I found out who your fiancé really is." She froze. For a split second, the city noise faded away. The traffic, the voices, the distant sirens, all of it disappeared, leaving only the tension between them. "What are you talking about?" she whispered, though her voice trembled like she already knew. Taehyung pulled his phone from his pocket. His thumb hovered for a moment before pressing play. "I didn't want to believe it either," he said quietly. "This was from 3 nights ago. He was at a bar. He didn't know I was there. The recording crackled to life. Her fiancé's voice filled the space between them, slurred, careless, cruel. She thinks she's the one calling the shots. Let her walk down the aisle. I'll keep her happy for a few months, get access to her father's accounts, then poof, divorce and profit. Easy. The sound looped. Once, twice. Each replay landed like a knife. Her face drained of color. She reached out slowly and took the phone from Taehyung's hand, staring at it as if it might explode. He said that, she choked. Taehyung nodded once. I didn't want to ruin your day. I wanted to protect you, and I kept quiet because I thought you were finally happy. Her knees buckled. Instinctively, Taehyung caught her before she hit the ground. She didn't pull away. For the first time in months, she didn't resist his touch. I was scared, she murmured into his chest. I was scared that if I chose you again, everything would fall apart. And I was scared, he said softly, that if I didn't fight for you, I'd lose the only person who ever made me believe in something. She looked up at him, eyes raw, wounded. But you still kept a secret from me, the reason I left. His body tensed. I had to protect someone else, he admitted, and it killed me knowing it hurt you, but there was a life at stake. Her breath caught. You mean her? Taehyung swallowed. She came to me desperate. I didn't touch her. I didn't kiss her, but she was being followed. If I told you then, you would have been dragged into something dangerous. She stepped back, arms crossing defensively. Do you have any idea what I went through, watching the man I loved sneak out at 2 in the morning, whispering in hallways, hiding calls? I know, he whispered, and I hated myself every night. The church bells rang faintly behind them. Somewhere across the street, a child laughed. The world kept moving. They didn't. Then she said the one thing he hadn't prepared for. I was pregnant. Taehyung's breath hitched violently. I lost it a week after I left you, she continued, tears falling freely now. I was alone. I didn't even have your name on the emergency contact list. The world tilted. You never told me, he whispered, clutching his chest. How could I, she snapped. You disappeared. I thought you chose someone else. I would have chosen you, he choked, every time. They stood there, two broken people barely holding themselves upright. A camera clicked nearby. Taehyung turned sharply, spotting a paparazzo ducking behind a parked car. We need to leave, he said quickly. Where? She asked, voice small. He extended his hand, somewhere quiet, somewhere real. She stared at it for what felt like an eternity. Then she took it. Not as a promise, but as a beginning. They disappeared into the cold city, unaware that the truth they had uncovered was only the first crack in something much bigger and far more dangerous. The cafe was quiet in the way only late afternoons could be. Dim lights, soft jazz humming through hidden speakers, the kind of place where time pretended to slow down even when the people inside were unraveling. Taehyung sat across from her, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. The table between them felt too small, like it couldn't hold everything that hadn't been said yet. I can't believe I'm sitting across from you again, she said finally, staring into her cup. Taehyung didn't blink. You think I can? Her gaze sharpened. You walked into my wedding like you were still allowed to matter. I didn't walk in to matter, he replied calmly. I walked in to stop you from being betrayed twice in one lifetime. Her jaw tightened. You think I needed saving? No, he said softly. I think you needed the truth, and no one else was brave enough to give it to you. She let out a bitter laugh. That's rich coming from the man who kept secrets from me. Taehyung leaned forward. Don't twist this. I protected someone who would have died. You were never supposed to be collateral. But I was, she shot back. You just didn't stay long enough to see the wreckage. You left, he snapped. I ran, she corrected, voice shaking. There's a difference. Running means I wanted to be chased." The words landed hard. Taehyung stared at her. "Then why didn't you stop when I finally did?" Her hands trembled. She looked down. "Because by the time you caught up, I thought you'd already replaced me." It felt like a slap. "That woman," she continued quietly, "the one you said you were protecting, she came to my apartment 3 days after I moved out." Taehyung's voice dropped. "What?" "She told me everything," she said. "The threats, the bruises. The night she showed up at your door, she told me you never touched her, never crossed the line." He clenched his jaw. "She shouldn't have come to you." "She said she owed me the truth," she replied. "She said more than you ever did." Silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. "I didn't want you to carry that," Taehyung said quietly. "You made me carry worse," she snapped. "Doubt, silence, watching my body fall apart while I wondered if you even remembered my birthday." His breath caught. "I remembered," he said hoarsely. "I just thought I didn't deserve to say anything." "Well," she said, leaning back exhausted, "now we're both guilty." A spoon clinked softly against porcelain behind them. A love song played faintly over the speakers, almost mocking. She looked at him again. "If I hadn't been getting married, would you have stayed gone?" Taehyung didn't answer right away. "Yes," he said finally, "because I thought you were better without me." Her face broke. "You didn't ruin me, Taehyung," she whispered. "You broke me quietly, like a crack in glass no one sees until it shatters." "And I've been living inside that crack ever since," he replied. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "Do you still love me?" He looked at her like she was the only thing keeping him upright. "I never stopped." She closed her eyes. For one fragile moment, the war inside her seemed to settle. Then the cafe door opened. The temperature in the room shifted instantly. The groom walked in. He wasn't devastated. He wasn't heartbroken. He was angry. "So this is where you ran off to," he said, marching toward their table. Taehyung stood instinctively. She pushed her chair back, eyes wide. "How did you find me?" "You left your phone in the bridal suite," he sneered, "and your mother saw who you left with." Taehyung stepped between them. "Watch how you talk to her." The groom laughed coldly. "And now you're the hero again." She grabbed Taehyung's arm. "Don't, he's not worth it." The groom turned on her, voice rising. "I gave up everything for you. My image, my connections. You think I was going to walk away from your father's company without a fight?" There it was. The truth finally unmasked. "You were marrying me for money," she whispered. He scoffed. "What did you think this was, a fairy tale? Grow up." Taehyung's fists tightened. "You should leave," Taehyung warned. "No," the groom snarled. "I'm not leaving until I say what I came here to say." He pointed at her. "You're nothing without your family name. You're damaged goods, and that's the real reason he left you." Taehyung punched him. The cafe went silent. The groom stumbled back, nose bleeding, shock written across his face. "Say it again," Taehyung said coldly, "and I'll break more than your pride." The groom hissed, pulling out his phone. "You think this is over? I'll destroy you both." Taehyung grabbed the phone and smashed it against the floor. "It's already over," he said. "You just haven't realized it yet." The groom fled. She stared at Taehyung, chest heaving. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," he replied, "for the girl who used to believe she was enough." Tears streamed down her face. "And do you still believe I am?" He reached out, wiping her tears with shaking fingers. "You're more than enough. You always were." She collapsed into his arms. Broken phones, spilled coffee, shattered illusions. And in that messy, unglamorous moment, they finally saw each other clearly. Not perfect, but real. The storm came without thunder. Not the kind that cracked the sky open or rattled windows, but the kind that lived inside people, quiet, suffocating, relentless. After the cafe, Taehyung and her walked the city streets without speaking, their shoulders brushing, their steps unsure of where they were going or what came next. They ended up at her apartment. She hadn't been there in weeks. Wedding preparations had swallowed her time, her thoughts, her sleep. Dust clung lightly to the bookshelves. The lights flickered once before settling. The air smelled like memories that had never fully left. Taehyung stood in the middle of the living room, hands in his pockets, eyes drawn to the photograph still hanging on the wall. One stopped him completely. A candid shot from Jeju, her laughing into the wind, hair tangled, Taehyung watching her like the rest of the world had vanished. He reached for the frame. "Don't," she said softly behind him. He froze. "I haven't been able to take it down," she admitted. "I told myself I hated you, that I was over you, but I couldn't erase us." Taehyung didn't turn around. "It's okay. I hated myself enough for both of us." She moved past him and sat on the couch, hands folded, eyes distant. "So what now?" He sat across from her. "I didn't plan beyond today. I just knew I couldn't watch you make the same mistake I did, trusting the wrong person." Her laugh was hollow. "You're assuming I still trust you." He nodded slowly. "Fair." She leaned forward, voice tightening. "You think just because you exposed him, I'll forget the nights I cried thinking you chose someone else? That I'll forget losing the baby alone?" Taehyung's face twisted. "I don't expect forgiveness, I expect honesty, a beginning or a proper end." She stood suddenly, anger flaring. "You don't get to decide that. You came back like a hurricane and destroyed everything I built to move on." "You deserved the truth," he said, standing too, "and I deserved one chance to give it." "You already lost me," she screamed. "The moment you stopped talking, the moment I found out from someone else, the moment I woke up in a hospital room with no one to call." Her words cut deep. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. "You don't know what that did to me," she whispered. "What it's like to feel your body punish you for loving someone." Taehyung dropped to his knees in front of her. "I do." She looked up, confused, angry. Taehyung reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. Old, worn. He handed it to her. She read it once, then again. Her lips parted. "I couldn't tell you," he said quietly. "I've been sterile since I was 19. An accident. I thought no one would love a man who couldn't give them children." Her hands trembled. "You thought I cheated." "I didn't want to believe it," he confessed, "but the doubt destroyed me." She slapped him hard. He didn't move. "I lost our baby," she cried, "and I never once doubted it was yours." "I'm sorry," he whispered, breaking. "I'm so sorry." She fell forward, burying her face in his chest. They stayed like that, the floor cold beneath them, the past finally spoken aloud. "It was yours," she said softly. "I know it." The rain began outside. Taehyung looked at her, voice barely there. "Can I stay?" She didn't answer. She didn't let go either. Morning brought chaos. Headlines exploded across the internet. Someone had leaked footage from the cafe. The punch, the audio, the confrontation. It was everywhere. She sat on the couch beside Taehyung, phone turned face down. "My parents are going to panic," she murmured. "I'll take the blame," Taehyung said. "We're past blame," she replied. A knock came at the door. Taehyung opened it to find Bang Si-hyuk standing in the hallway, calm but sharp-eyed. He stepped inside, taking in the room, the tension, the truth written on their faces. "I assume you've seen the footage," Bang said. "I have," Taehyung replied. "I've also received an email," Bang continued. "From your ex-fiancé. He's threatening legal action." The room dropped several degrees. "But that's not why I'm here," Bang said, turning to her. "Are you going to let him take this fall alone again?" She froze. "If you're not ready to fight for him," Bang added, "let him go before his career is destroyed." Taehyung stepped forward. She doesn't owe me that. Yes, she does, Bang said firmly. You stood in a cathedral and bled for her name. Now it's her turn. The door closed behind him, leaving silence in its wake. She turned slowly to Taehyung. I'll hold a press conference. He stared at her. You don't have to. I want to, she said. I'm done letting lies speak for me. For the first time in a long time, Taehyung believed they might survive this. Together, the hotel ballroom was already full when she arrived. Cameras lined the walls like a silent jury. Microphones crowded the table at the front of the room. Reporters sat shoulder to shoulder, phones glowing with drafted headlines, fingers hovering, waiting to strike the moment she spoke. She walked in wearing black. No jewelry, no smile, no attempt to soften the truth. Taehyung stood behind the curtain at the side of the stage, technically out of frame, technically not present at all. But his presence was thunder inside her chest. She could feel it in the way her hands trembled, in the way her breath steadied when she reminded herself why she was here. The moderator adjusted the microphone and nodded. She leaned forward. I won't be taking questions at the end of this statement, she said calmly. Everything I need to say will be said now. The room stilled. My name is, she paused, feeling the weight of her family name press against her spine. And I am the woman who was supposed to get married 3 days ago. A murmur rippled through the crowd. But I didn't, she continued, voice firm, because the man I was going to marry lied to me, repeatedly, strategically, not just about who he was but about what he planned to take. Keyboards clicked faster. He intended to use my trust, my silence, and my family to gain access to financial control, then leave once it benefited him. A gasp somewhere near the front. She didn't flinch. That truth came out publicly, and I know how it looked. Messy, emotional, inconvenient, but lies don't unravel quietly. They break loudly. She inhaled, then shifted. But I'm not here only to talk about his betrayal. I'm here to talk about mine. The room leaned in. I hurt someone who loved me, she said. I left without listening. I assumed the worst and disappeared when communication mattered most. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. I was pregnant, she said. The word landed like glass shattering. I lost the baby before I could tell anyone. Not because I wanted secrecy, but because I didn't know how to grieve while smiling for engagement photos. Silence. Heavy, absolute. And the man who would have held my hand through that pain, she continued softly, I shut him out, because I didn't understand that he was drowning too. Cameras flashed. She lifted her chin. I'm saying this now because truth isn't clean. It doesn't fit into headlines or hashtags, but it's all I have left, and I refuse to let it be twisted. She stood. I am not a victim. I am not a scandal. I am a woman who lost a child, found her voice, and chose to stand beside the man who told her she was still worthy, even when she was broken. The room erupted. Questions shouted, flashes exploded. She turned and walked off the stage, straight into Taehyung's arms. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. His hand at the small of her back was the only thing keeping her grounded as they moved through the hallway, security pushing back the noise. Outside it was chaos. Fans, reporters, phones raised high. Is it true you faked the pregnancy for sympathy? Someone yelled. Her breath caught. Taehyung's jaw tightened. Let me. She squeezed his hand and stepped forward. No, she said clearly. It was real. It was mine. And I will not let any of you disrespect a life I carried, even if it only lived for a few weeks. The crowd fell silent. Another voice shouted, Do you regret choosing him over your fiancé? She stopped walking. Taehyung shook his head slightly. Don't. She turned anyway. I didn't choose between two men, she said. I chose between a lie and the truth. I chose the one who stayed human when everything fell apart. Then she walked away. 3 hours later, the internet was on fire. Clips from the press conference trended worldwide. Opinions clashed. Some praised her bravery, others tore her apart. The ex-fiancé released a cold statement denying everything. Then the audio resurfaced. Clear, subtitled, impossible to deny. Public opinion shifted. That night her father called. She put it on speaker. Taehyung sat across from her, silent. "You've embarrassed the family," her father said. "The board is furious. We've lost partners." "So you want me to apologize for telling the truth?" she asked calmly. "I want you to fix it," he snapped. "You're my daughter, not a headline." She stood. "Don't reduce me to a PR liability," she said. "I survived losing a child and being humiliated publicly. I won't erase that because it's inconvenient." Silence. "You've changed," her father said finally. "Yes," she replied, "because I finally know what's worth protecting." The call ended. She sank back onto the couch, shaking. Taehyung moved to her instantly. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." She nodded. "I know, but this isn't over." A knock came at the door just before dawn. Taehyung opened it to find her ex-fiancé standing there, eyes bloodshot, suit wrinkled, 2 lawyers behind him. He handed over a sealed envelope. "Defamation, assault, corporate sabotage," he said calmly. "This is just the beginning." She stepped forward, fearless. "You lost," she said. He smirked. "We'll see who the courts believe." The door closed behind him. She looked at Taehyung, fear finally slipping through. "What now?" Taehyung picked up the envelope, eyes steady. "Now," he said, "we stop running." The lawsuit landed like a bomb. By sunrise, every major outlet had the headline. The ex-fiancé's legal team moved fast, flooding the media with words like defamation, assault, emotional manipulation. Clips were cut, reframed, stripped of context. Taehyung's punch looped endlessly on screens, slowed down, zoomed in, replayed as if violence were the only truth that mattered. Taehyung sat in the living room, suit jacket folded beside him, phone face down. He hadn't slept. Across from him, she stared at the wall, arms wrapped around herself, scrolling without really seeing. Every comment felt like a verdict, every opinion another stone. "They're turning you into a monster," she said quietly. Taehyung exhaled. "I've survived worse labels." "That doesn't make it okay." He finally looked at her. "I chose that moment. I chose to protect you knowing the cost." Her eyes filled. "I never wanted to be the reason you lose everything." He moved closer. "You're the reason I remember why it matters." A knock interrupted them. This time it wasn't lawyers or executives. It was Jungkook. He stood in the doorway, hoodie pulled low, eyes sharp with concern. "Hyung," he said softly. Taehyung stood, pulling him into a brief, tight hug. "I watched everything," Jungkook said, stepping inside. "The edits, the lies, the silence after." She rose awkwardly. "I'm sorry you're being dragged into this." Jungkook shook his head. "I'm already in it, we all are." He turned to Taehyung. "The company wants you to stay quiet, no statements, no appearances." Taehyung scoffed. "Silence is what started this." "Exactly," Jungkook replied. "That's why I think you should talk, but not like this." He pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. "Live," Jungkook said. "Together, no scripts, no PR." The idea hung heavy in the air. She swallowed. "If we do that, there's no going back." Taehyung met her eyes. "I'm done going back." That evening, the notification broke the internet. Taehyung live. Millions tuned in within seconds. Taehyung sat center frame, calm, composed, stripped of glamour. She sat beside him, hands folded in her lap, face bare, real. No filters, no music. Taehyung spoke first. "I'm not here to defend a punch," he said evenly. "I'm here to explain why silence can be just as violent." Comments exploded. "For years, I believed disappearing was the safest way to protect people I loved," he continued. "I was wrong. Silence doesn't protect, it abandons." He turned to her. "This woman was painted as unstable, emotional, reckless," he said. "But what you didn't see were the hospital rooms, the unanswered calls, the grief she carried alone while smiling for strangers." Her breath shook. "I won't allow anyone to use her pain as a weapon," Taehyung added, "including me." She spoke next. "I didn't come here to be believed by everyone," she said. "I came here so my truth wouldn't belong to people who profit from twisting it." She looked straight into the camera. "I lost a child. I lost my voice. And I almost lost myself trying to be what everyone expected me to be." The comments slowed. Then Taehyung did something no one expected. He reached for her hand. "I love her," he said simply, "not as a scandal, not as a redemption arc, as a woman who survived something that broke us both." Silence. Then the stream ended. No goodbye. No damage control. Just truth. The fallout was immediate. Sponsors pulled out, then others stepped in. Public opinion fractured, then shifted. Legal experts began questioning the ex-fiancé's claims. Old emails surfaced. Financial records leaked. By morning, the narrative had changed. But the cost was still real. Taehyung stood on the balcony as dawn broke, city lights fading beneath the rising sun. She joined him, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. "Are you scared?" she asked. "Yes," he answered honestly, "but I'm not ashamed anymore." She rested her head against his arm. "I don't know how this ends," she whispered. Taehyung looked out over the city. "Neither do I, but for the first time, I'm not hiding from it." Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We have the evidence. He lied, all of it." She showed Taehyung. He nodded slowly. "Then this isn't the end," he said. "It's the moment everything finally catches up." They stood there together, bruised but unbroken, as the world prepared for its final verdict. And this time, they were ready to hear it. The courthouse steps were colder than she expected. Not because of the weather, but because of the silence. No shouting reporters, no flashing cameras, just a quiet, tense crowd held back by metal barriers, waiting for doors to open and lives to tilt one way or another. Taehyung walked beside her, his expression unreadable. For weeks, the evidence had surfaced piece by piece. Bank transfers hidden behind shell companies, emails promising access to her family's board, recorded calls where the ex-fiancé spoke about the marriage like a transaction that had gone wrong. Still, nothing felt real until they sat in that courtroom. The judge entered. The room stood. And everything that had once been gossip, rumor, and scandal was reduced to facts. Hours passed. The punch was addressed. Taehyung admitted it, took responsibility, no excuses, no theatrics. Then the lies were dismantled. Witnesses spoke. Documents were projected onto screens. The ex-fiancé's confidence cracked slowly, visibly, until even his lawyers stopped meeting his eyes. When the verdict came, it was almost anticlimactic. All charges of defamation were dismissed. The civil claim collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. The assault charge was reduced, mitigated by provocation and context. But the real blow landed last. The judge ruled that the ex-fiancé had knowingly entered the engagement under false pretenses, with intent to gain financial leverage. Fraud. Abuse of trust. The gavel fell. It was over. Outside, the world rushed back in. News alerts exploded. Analysts spoke in calm, practiced voices about turning points and public reckoning. Social media shifted again. this time slower, heavier, more ashamed. Taehyung didn't look at his phone. Neither did she. They sat in the car for a long time before he spoke. "I've been offered a choice," Taehyung said quietly. She turned to him. "What kind of choice?" "A public return," he answered, "or a quiet hiatus. No explanation, no interviews." Her chest tightened. "What do you want?" He didn't answer immediately. "For most of my life," he said finally, "I let other people decide what version of me was acceptable." He reached for her hand. "I don't want to disappear again, but I don't want to perform my pain either." She nodded. "Then don't." A week later, Taehyung released a single statement. No photos, no music, no apology tour. Just words. He spoke about accountability, about learning the cost of silence, about choosing honesty over image. And then he stepped back. Not away. Just enough to breathe. They left the city quietly. No goodbye posts, no airport photos, just two people learning how to exist without constant noise. Mornings were slow. Conversations were unguarded. Grief was allowed to surface without being packaged into a narrative. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she stood on the balcony of their temporary home, watching the horizon fade. "Do you ever think about who we would have been," she asked, "if none of this had happened?" Taehyung joined her. "I think we're exactly who we were supposed to become," he said, "just later and with more scars." She smiled faintly. "Scars don't scare me anymore." "Me neither." Months later, the world moved on, as it always does. But occasionally a quiet photo would surface, a candid shot, two silhouettes walking side by side, no caption, no explanation. And that was enough. Because the truth didn't need to be loud anymore. It had survived. They had survived. And for the first time, the future didn't feel like something waiting to break them. It felt like something they were finally allowed to choose. And